Okay, say you're working on a border and you want your feather to go all the way around the border and not have a stop and a start point. So how would you quilt that or even design that? So let's do another demonstration here, and I'm going to draw out a border, and I'm going to have to make this one small, and let's see, let's make this about 2.5 inches. That would be about there. Okay, we're going to have to ignore this mark here and that one there. I kind of misjudged that. But okay, say we want to do a feather and we want it to go all the way around our quilt, and we don't want a stop and start point. Like on these feathers here, we obviously started here and we ended up here. But if we want a feather that goes all the way around our quilt in the border with no stop and start point, we're going to have to do something different about that. So I'm going to do, basically, I normally will do a curved spine, like on this side, a curvy spine. And then when I design my corners, I will use a template and draw my corners in first. Now, this template's going to be too big for this, so I'm going to just draw it in by hand, and I'll draw it on both corners, and then I draw my spine in like this. Or I'll use my template. So here we've got our spine, and let me use my Sharpie on that. So here we have our spine. Now I usually quilt from left to right, so I'm going to start my quilting over here. And whether you start on this side of your feather or that side of your feather really isn't going to make that much difference. You just need to choose which way you want to start and just start. So I'm going to start with a half feather. So I'm going to start over here and just draw my half feather in. And that's how I would quilt it. I'll just quilt here, and then I'll come up, and then I'll quilt my feathers around. So these are the bump back feathers. And just keep drawing them in. Now I'm coming to another corner, and I try to fill in the corner as much as I can with a feather. It does usually work out pretty well. Sometimes I have to fudge a little bit, make one feather smaller or larger in order to do that, but it usually works pretty well. And I'll do this all the way around the quilt until I'm coming back around, and then I've got to fit a feather in here, so I'm going to bump back over and quilt out so I hit that tip and then pull it down, and then I'm done with the outside. Now I don't break my thread at this point. I'll go ahead and start working on this side now. So I just continue quilting and just going around, and then I'll show you how I do the corner here. Now I'm going to put in one of those small pearls, a feather that's lying down right there, and build off of that. And that's how I design and quilt my feathers in a border. Make another feather that lays down and just keep on going. And then again, as I'm coming up, I would be, I'd have a feather here, and then just quilt, touch that tip right there, and then that feather is done. So you can do that with a straight spine, a curvy spine. You can do it with any style of feather, whether it's these formal bump back feathers, or if you have those with a curly Q in them. You can come back through as you're quilting, come in and put some spines in, like every other feather or every feather if you want, and it gives the quilting a little bit more dimension. So if you like that look, you can come in and put anything in these that you want. If you want to just do kind of a ferny thing in there, you can do that too. So you can decorate your feathers up any way you want. If you like to outline your feathers, do an echo around them, you know, leave yourself space between the end of your feather and your border edge, and come back around and then do your outline around the tips of your feathers. Okay, so we have done a feather where you stop and start in along a straight edge. Right here, we started here and ended there. We've put them in a triangle. We've done a feather with a curved spine, but also has a starting and a stopping point. And then we did a border with a curved spine, and I showed you how to stop and start so that that isn't noticeable, and how to turn a corner in your border. Well, what if you want to do something similar to this, but you want to do more of a swag? And by that I mean you want your feathers to start in the corner and then flow outwards. So how would you do that? Well, the first thing I would do is to find the angle. And by doing that, I would draw a line on my border with my marker, like my chalk marker, from corner to corner. That's going to give me my center point, and I would do that on all of my borders and all of my corners of my borders. And then I draw in my a mark for the center of each border. So this border from the inside point to the inside point is 5 inches. So center would be at 2.5. So I'm going to draw a line there, and this gives you your boundaries. And then I'm going to say that the center of this border on the edges, on the sides, let's say that ends, I'm going to make it pretty well even here. I'll say that it ends here. So I would mark the center. I'm doing all of this with some kind of marker that can be removed, like chalk or air-soluble marker or water-soluble marker. So I have all those marks in there, and now I know I want to start my feather plume in the center, and I want it to end here in the center of the borders. So now I need to decide what kind of spine I want. Do I want it to be curvy like this, or do I want it straight like this? How do I want that? Well, on this one, I think I'm going to go ahead and do it curvy, so I'm going to go ahead and use my templates and then draw my curve in there. And like I said, this is too big for this, so I'm just going to do this by hand. And you can do it by hand, however you like. And then I'm going to draw the rest of the spine. I want the spine to end at an upward curve in the center. But maybe you want yours down. But anyway, design it however you want. And I'm just saying, on this demonstration here on this quilt, I'm wanting my spine to end on an upward curve. So I'm going to draw that in. And then you can decide how you want your corners to look. Do you want it to just have your feathers start here and move out? Do you want something fancy in here? You could put all different kinds of things in here. You could do circles. You could do pearls, which would be, you know, teardrop shapes. You could do a large teardrop. There's all different kinds of things you could do. But what I'm going to do on this one is I'm going to have kind of a pointed oval here. This is how I want this feather to look here. Now down here I want to kind of do the same thing, but I want it a bit smaller. I don't want it quite as large. So I'm going to do that in all my corners. And so that's all set. I want them to end in the center, and then when I get to there I need to decide how I want that to look. Do I want it to end so that it's kind of chopped off like that, or do I want it to end more like this with the little feather in the center and then them coming out at an angle? And I think that's what I'll do on this side, and then on this side I'll show you how it looks if those feathers are all filling in. So I'm going to draw my guidelines here, and I want this feather to end in a pearl right there. On this end I'm going to try and fill those in. So now I need to start my feathers. They're going to start from the center and move out. So I'm going to come up here, and I can decide if I want a small feather coming off here and then build up, or if I just want a large feather. And I think right here I'm just going to go ahead and put in a fairly large feather to fill up the space, because I just like to fill space. And then I'm going to build my feathers out. And let me use my Sharpie so you can see that better. And here, just start building them out. And as I'm quilting, of course, I will be going back and forth. And now I'm getting towards my angle where I want them to be smaller. And I'm going to stop here because I don't have a whole lot of room there. And now I'm going to do this side, and I'm going to have this feather come out. And then I'm going to do my center feather right there. So this spine, when I quilted, I forgot to show you how I quilted in, but I would just quilt it up to where I think I need to stop. Sometimes I quilt it too far, and then I wind up having to pick out stitches, which isn't a big deal. That wouldn't be too many stitches. Or if I don't quilt it quite far enough, when I'm quilting these feathers in, I can just fill that in with the stem. So it's really not a big problem. So we'll do the same thing on this side, and I'm going to go ahead and kind of stop my spine right there, and then quilt in my feathers. And these feathers are starting to lie down, so I'm going to put in a little one and build those up. And there's my guideline there. So I'm going to stop there and come around here and do the next set of feathers. And then come up and do my little pearl. So we have, this looks different because I've got that little extra feather in there, but that gives you the idea of how to stop that there. Now if I want them to end, I want them to fill up this space. I want to fill up the corners there. I don't want them to come at that point. So we're going to just build the feathers up that way. So we're going to just keep quilting them in. Right there. Come around on this side. The Sharpie is really dragging on the paper. Like that. And then I don't like that little gap there, so I'll come back around and put another small feather in there. So I'll just continue on this side. Kind of stop my spine a little bit short. Okay, there's the feather swag. So it gives you a couple of ideas of different ways that you can do a feather swag in your borders. I hope that gives you a couple of ideas on ways that you can design feathers for your borders and ways to quilt them in, and throw in a couple of variables in your feathers and do things the way that they suit you. Now next time I'm going to show you more about feathers, and I'm going to concentrate a little bit more on the stems, on the vein, the main part of the feather, and we're going to try things like a double vein on your feather. So I hope you'll stay tuned, and I hope you enjoy this set of videos on designing feathers for your quilts.
Thanks for watching. For more quilting ideas, click on the video links. And to keep up with my newest projects, click on the subscribe button. I hope to see you again soon.